All right, good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. You know, we have witnessed something to me that is absolutely devastating. The UK Labour, Jeremy Corbyn, went down in a heap of flames. It was one of the most brutal beatdowns of all time. But when you look at it, it's even more grotesque than you can imagine. Number one, there's never been more media coverage completely lying, completely and utterly imbalanced, and completely and utterly elevating a narrative of just absolute insanity, gaslighting, and lies. The propaganda was so thick, so disgusting, it wasn't even funny. But there was some legitimate things that happened that I think are very instructive to the United States, in particular to the Bernie Sanders movement and the Bernie Sanders campaign. What you had in Europe, what you had in the UK, was a guy in Jeremy Corbyn that had a vision of democratic socialism, stuff that we're trying to fight for here in the United States. Unfortunately, they had this underlining thing called Brexit. And Brexit had multiple ways of looking at it. But one of the chief ways that it was presented to the world was that it was about xenophobia, that it was about bigotry, that it was about racism. Now, just like any subject can be twisted and turned, there were bigots, there were racists, and there was a conservative group that wanted desperately for Brexit to occur. But there was another side to this that was very, very poorly, if covered at all. And that was the understanding of neoliberalism and how neoliberalism had opened up the borders in such a way without taking care of the people, without shaving away the austerity. And the people themselves were losing, having nothing to do with the bigotry or xenophobia or anything else like that. Just like in the United States, where they look down at the South and they look at Mexico and they worry about, we're losing our jobs. They worry about all the immigrants coming to this nation. Again, we've talked extensively about this. This is a direct outcome of neoliberalism. So, what I'm going to do today, and I want to talk about this at some length, we're going to look at an article, two articles actually. One of them in particular was an older article in Jacobin magazine. And this article is with the almighty Bill Mitchell and Tom Fozzi. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through this real quickly and read it to you, at least the high points of it. It says, Remainers claim that Brexit will be an economic apocalypse, but it provides the opportunity for a radical break with neoliberalism. Nothing better reflects the muddled thinking of a mainstream European left than its stance on Brexit. Each week seems to produce a new chapter for the Brexit scare story. Withdrawing from the EU will be an economic disaster for the UK. Tens of thousands of jobs will be lost. Human rights will be eviscerated. The principles of fair trial, speech, decent labor standards will all be compromised. In short, Brexit will transform Britain into a dystopia, a failed state, or worse, an international pariah. Cut off from the civilized world against a backdrop, it's easy to see why Labour Party Jeremy Corbyn is often criticized for his unwillingness to adopt a pro-Remain agenda. The left's anti-Brexit hysteria, however, is based on a mixture of bad economics, flawed understanding of the European Union, and a lack of political imagination. Not only is there no reason to believe that Brexit would be an economic apocalypse, more importantly, abandoning the EU provides the British left, the European left more generally, with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to show that a radical break with neoliberalism and with the institutions that support it is possible. Now, folks, I want to just stop right there for a second and say, for the most part, I think most people haven't got a clue what that's talking about. They're looking at that and they're saying, oh, this is like some Lafarge thing or some crazy, right-wing thing. And it's not at all. It's not at all. Because, see, the problem is what people just do not understand is the concept of state money, state currency, and the power of the state, okay? Because you've been so used to neoliberal open borders, free trade agreements, all the stuff that the people lose, but big businesses win. It's not the people that win here, ever, by the way. It's always the major corporations that win. They gain new markets. They gain new revenue sources. And does that money make it to the people? 50 years of flatline salaries says absolutely not. And then make it worse, the libertarian strain of the world wants to push a UBI out there to make up for it. They want to act like this is all completely unavoidable and it can't possibly be any other way. So the only radical way we can handle this is to let everybody become a consumption unit to capital. Here's your $1,000 token to go out and buy goods and services from these parasites. Oh, these good people. But that's not how this is going down. And this is why this article is so important. So we continue. And I hope that you all take the time to think about this, because if you don't, you're going to miss this, because this is going to impact Bernie Sanders in the long run. To understand why the anti-Brexit stance of most European progressives is unfounded and actually harmful, we should start by looking at the most pervasive Brexit-related myth of all, the idea that it will lead to an economic collapse. For many critics, this is an open and shut case, proven simply by citing a much-publicized leaked report prepared by the British government's own Department of Exiting the European Union, DexEU. The document concludes that all possible forms of Brexit, from remaining in the single market to a free trade deal or no deal at all, would have substantially negative impact on the UK's GDP. Estimates range from 2% lower GDP and 700,000 fewer jobs over the next 15 years to an 8% lower GDP and as much as 2.8 million fewer jobs. This line of argument can be found in a recent article by anti-Brexit commentator Will Denier, which cites the fact that the report was produced by Britain's pro-Brexit government as proof of its reliability. However, he fails to acknowledge that these forecasts suffer from a neoliberal bias embedded within the forecasting models themselves. The mathematical models used by the British government are highly complex and abstract, and the results are sensitive to the numerical calibration of the relationships in the models and the assumptions made about, for example, the effects of technology. The models are notoriously unreliable and easily manipulated to achieve whatever outcome one desires. The British government has refused to release the technical aspects of their modeling, which suggests they do not want independent analysis examining their black box assumptions. The neoliberal biases built into these models include the assertions that markets are self-regulating and capable of delivering optimal outcomes so long as they are unhindered by government interventions, that free trade is unambiguously positive, that governments are financially constrained, that supply-side factors are much more important than demand-side ones, and that individuals base their decision on rational expectations about economic variables, among many others. Many of the key assumptions used to construct these exercises bear no relation to reality. Simply put, the forecasting models, much like mainstream macroeconomics in general, are built on a sequence of interrelated myths. Paul Romer, who earned his PhD economics in 1980s at the University of Chicago, the temple of neoliberal economics, recently provided a scathing attack of his own profession in a paper titled The Trouble with Macroeconomics. Romer describes the standard modeling approaches used by mainstream economists, which he calls post-real, as the end point of a 3-decade intellectual regression. It is no surprise, then, that these models utterly failed to predict the financial crisis and the Great Recession, and continuously fail today to produce reliable forecasts about anything. Brexit is an obvious example. In the months leading up to the referendum, the world was flooded with warnings from the IMF to the OECD and other bastions of contemporary economics, claiming that a leave vote in the referendum would have immediate apocalyptic consequences for the UK, causing a financial meltdown and plunging the country into a deep recession. The most embarrassing forecast of the immediate economic impact of a vote to leave EU on the UK was published by the Tory government. The aim of the study in question, released May 2016 by the UK Treasury, was to quantify the impact over the immediate period of 2 years following a vote to leave. Within 2 years of a leave vote, the Treasury predicted the GDP would be between 3.6 and 6% lower, and the number of people unemployed would rise by as much as 820,000. The predictions in May 2016 study sounded dire and were clearly aimed at having the maximum impact on the vote, which would be held a month later. Just weeks before the referendum, the then Chancellor George Osborne cited the report to warn that a vote to leave would represent an immediate and profound shock to our economy, and that the shock would push our economy into recession and lead to another increase in unemployment of around 500,000. Now, folks, these are the sorts of things that people read and they get excited about, and they start, yeah, look at this article, man. Look at this article. But most folks don't understand. Do you know what neoliberalism is? Do you even know what neoliberalism is? No, it does not mean an establishment Democrat. That is not the definition of a neoliberal. A neoliberal is someone who fantasizes about the superiority of markets. One Elizabeth Warren recently said that she loves markets. She is a capitalist to her bones. This is another Andrew Yang stronghold. He loves markets. He wants to subsidize shit wages with a UBI. Another bona fide neo-frickin' liberal. And there's Tulsi right behind him, championing a UBI that champions markets. The same exact shit. There's only one that's not doing that, and that's Bernie Sanders. But yet the too cool for school kids that are running around trying to act like this is some good thing, they don't even know what the word neoliberal means. They don't know what the fucking word neoliberal even means. Do you consider that as shameful as I do? I fucking think it's really shameful. It's embarrassing. And you know what? Jeremy Corbyn was not able to pull together a majority to be able to win this thing. Why is that? It wasn't because he didn't have the right ideas. It was because of the propaganda machine that went around trying to say stuff like, you see many of these bozos saying the Green New Deal isn't as good as the Off Act. It's just not as good as the Off Act. Ignorant people running around saying ignorant things. Dumb things. Movement-killing things. Oh, well, Medicare for all, we need to pay for that by fine. No. Deflationary. You don't understand economics. You don't understand economics. It wouldn't be so bad if you admitted it, but you don't admit it. You run around like an authority. You get your little claptrap in your alternative media, and you get a bunch of people not understanding, and all of a sudden shit starts happening. Well, in the UK, they had it worse because their entire mainstream apparatus was beating this drum. Labor was beating this drum. There's only a few people that really understood. And that is the power of propaganda. And that is also the power of when the left splits up and starts going into little factions. Well, that may not be the same Medicare for all, but she's got a really neat idea. It's her own idea. Well, you know what? You need a whole lot more than an idea. You need a fucking movement. And you need a large majority of people. And when you're trying to carve away from a majority that exists, you're not helping anybody. You're hurting the movement. And that's exactly what happened in the UK. And that's what happened to Jeremy Corbyn. And you know what? This is the worst part of it. For the next 6 years, they're going to be destroying the National Health Service. They're going to be pulling apart every part of the social safety nets. They're going to be decimating all the public services in the name of neoliberalism, all because people refused, folks, fucking refused to understand economics, deliberately chose, in my opinion, but more generously, more graciously, more, nicely. Maybe they just didn't understand. And so they rushed out there without any kind of economic understanding and pulled the neoliberal lever. And now they're going to suffer mightily. The MMT people understood. The neoliberals did not. And the accidental neoliberals did not. Just like it's going to happen in the United States if we don't get smart and smart quick. I oftentimes wonder why people say follow the money. Why people always talk about, they get some stupid article comes out about the military squandering money and the Federal Reserve. They don't have a clue what they're reading, but damn it, they're forwarding it like some say the end is near. I mean, this is the kind of shit, man. I mean, it's like, what in the world are you thinking? We're not that stupid. You need a large majority to win anything. And in Europe, they've got Boris. And the United States, we've got Trump. And worse, we've got a Democratic establishment that's determined to keep Trump in a second term. They're going to impeach him, but he'll get another term. Why is that? Because they're trying to destroy the one person who has a movement behind him, and that's Bernie Sanders. And the same thing with the too cool for school lefties, the fake lefties, the libertarian lefties that are supporting Tulsi and Yang. I watch The Gray Zone or listen to these folks, and some of the stuff they say is really phenomenal, but they genuinely don't understand economics. They push crap about petrodollars and imperialism and shit, and they don't realize that just like Japan, just like the UK, just like Australia, it doesn't matter. To be able to use your currency in your country, to employ every American, to employ every Brit, to employ every Aussie, doesn't require great free trade agreements. It doesn't matter whether someone in another country has confidence in your currency. It doesn't flipping matter. Who cares if you don't buy their products? If we don't have those products made elsewhere, we'll make them here. It doesn't matter. And guess what? In the United States, cash is king. Dollar is gold. It's worth it. It's there. Period. But these economic myths and legends, the petrodollar, when the petrodollar goes away, the world, it's all going to come collapsing down. This is the cool, stupid shit that dumbos talk about, that don't understand this stuff, but mislead huge swaths of people following this garbage. And this is the kind of shit that kills a movement. It's a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the sack. It doesn't have to be. Look, this is not really hard to understand. What does free trade really mean to you and me? What it means to you and me is that these companies can go elsewhere to make their products and services. They can leave. They can do whatever. They're in control. They're the ones making the decisions of who gets hired, who doesn't. They're the ones making the decisions about what the economy looks like because they determine how much money they're going to pocket. And they determine how much money they're going to pay you. So you've taken away democracy and you put it in the hands of corporations. Way to go, UBI gang. Freaking stellar, brilliant, just ginormous brain, brilliant people. I know. Let's go ahead and give corporations even more power. Here's $1,000. Now go shut up and buy some stuff at Walmart. Fucking stupid. Moronic. It's not, it doesn't even require like some big, huge, MBA or a freaking degree in economics to get this. It just requires a fucking brain. Sparks firing. That's really all it requires. And the people that are poor that really need cash, guess what? What they really need is food. What they really need is shelter. What they really need is clothing. What they really need is education. What they really need is shelter. What they don't really need is just pieces of paper and left in the street. Hey, we trust you, Pete Buttigieg, to go ahead and find your own health care, baby. We trust you to do that. That's the neoliberal way, because you know what? Everybody is perfectly up to speed on all their medical choices, and they are perfectly skilled at doing all these things. Here's some money. Go figure it out, fucker. Brilliant UBI people, brilliant libertarians, brilliant faux-gressives, too cool for school. Jeremy Corbyn resigned today because he just couldn't get his message out there, because they wanted to play patty cake, and people were sitting there fapping off, completely fapping off, without understanding. Anytime somebody said Brexit, they immediately substituted the word racist and bigot, and they didn't substitute ending neoliberalism, because ironically, sometimes the bad guys accidentally stumble into getting something right every once in a while. But no. So now, UK, you have my deepest sympathies, but you will be suffering for 5 to 6 years of pure, unadulterated austerity. Your social infrastructure is going to be ripped to shreds, and you're going to be told how great markets are. I just hope to God that the people in the United States listen and learn from this. But probably what will happen is that these same assholes that say the Green New Deal isn't as good as the OFF Act, the same idiots that run around talking about a UBI versus a job guarantee that prevents this shit, the same idiots that are running around doing that, the same full cups that couldn't be bothered to learn economics, that talk about the fucking petrodollar, those same buffoonicus's, those same dorks, those same dweebs, those same neo-maxi dweebies, those same fucking assholes will end up leading us to slaughter like they did in the goddamn UK, because they're just so fucking cool and woke. They're so cool and woke. You know, when you don't start from a position of truth and you don't understand the economics and you're too badass to admit you don't understand it, and you go and mislead people and people die from it, I don't consider that to be an accident. I consider that fucking murder. It's just a straight up truth. Is it harsh? Only if you don't believe in truth. If you think that's harsh, then that means you don't believe in truth. When you leave, let's play a game for a minute. Let's talk about this for a second. A corporation has one goal and one goal only: to maximize profits. They can have all these strategic goals. They can have all these vision statements. They can have mission statements galore, whatever. At the end of the day, they will do what they can do to maximize shareholder value. They'll cut labor. They'll cut corners. They'll lobby Congress to get rid of regulation. They'll do whatever they can. And then they'll claim that the reason why they failed was government regulation, government intervention. If they'd have just let us do what we do, we'd have done it. But they didn't. And so now you people are suffering because government got in the way. Government got in the way. They never tell you the fact that their lobbyists have been creating all the regulations to block new entrants into their markets. This is a war for territory. This is not some sort of game of, well, we just want to make sure everybody has a good paying job. Honest to goodness, that's what we're doing it for. We just want to give them a good job. Liar. So what do you think we as Americans can do to prevent what happened in the UK happening in the United States. I got to tell you, there are worse fates than a Donald Trump presidency. Not many, but there are. And one of them is that the left chops its own nutsack off, thinking it's done some good thing by handing capital even more wins, by pretending the federal government isn't strong enough to provide labor, to prevent vultures from swooping in and being predators on the poor. If the government doesn't spend, they end up finding ways to give us credit. And credit makes us debt slaves. Bernie Sanders is pushing forward a loan sharking bill. I covered this with Emma Katerine in the Macro and Cheese podcast this week. If you haven't seen it or listened to it, please check it out. www.macro cheese.com. The most recent podcast was about the loan shark, preventing loans. Preventing loan sharking is a big deal. These title loans that they put out there, people are in desperate shape. They'll go ahead and put the title of their car up just to get a few $1,000s to pay their mortgage. And then in 2 months, they not only don't have a house, but they don't have a car either. And now they can't get to work, and now they're homeless. This is neoliberalism. This is the credit debt trap. And this is what austerity breeds. And this is what's going to happen in the UK. Because when you do away with government services, you're left with having the people have to find a way to make those things happen. And if wages don't go up, and if things are not cost controlled, there's no guarantee people have those services. And then it'll be a competition to see who has the most bucks to earn the right to have a new kidney, to earn the right to have their health condition addressed. That's your UBI, that's your neoliberal plan, and that right there, my friends, is what's happened in the UK and what I think some of the too cool for school former burners that have gone elsewhere and fucked the whole movement up, those people, neoliberal shit, and they don't even realize it because they think the word neoliberal means centrist Democrat. They don't realize that it means fattening capital through a UBI and other such measures. It's a shameful thing. It's shameful because you got the plan right there in front of you. The Green New Deal is a framework. What does that mean? It means that we're providing a restructuring of society. It means that we are restructuring the way we value people. It means we're restructuring the way we handle the environment. It's not just getting rid of fossil fuels. For God's sake, there's so much more to this that you will never understand if you don't take the time to think. If you act like a herd animal and run with the herd and just and keep on walking, it's cool, fist in the air, dude. If you keep doing that and you don't step back and read and do a little homework, and I'm not talking about Tales from the Fire Pit left. I'm talking about the real left, the left that is actually doing the hard work. The academics who have invested majorly in trying to prepare us for this. The modern monetary theory gang. The real progressive front through Bernie Sanders. If you're not digging this, if you're not learning about this, if you're going with I love markets Warren, you're leaving people behind. You're leaving them stuck in a dog-eat-dog world. And you're failing to address the climate crisis. And you're failing to address the credit crisis. And you're failing at every level to bring about equity and equality into society. Let Jeremy Corbyn be a warning to us in the United States. The best ideas sometimes turn out to be Betamax, but you end up passing VHS. And that, my friends, is what we have got to guard against. Let Jeremy Corbyn's resignation and let the misery that our friends in the UK are going to experience be a guide to blocking that in the United States so that we don't allow the too cool for school kids to wreck this for us all. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives in Action. Have a great day, everybody.